and they're into the stretch, and it's Nyquist in front. His adversary, Exaggerator, got a jump on him, and he's gone by to take the lead as they come to the 8th pole. It is Exaggerator in front. Now, Nyquist switches back to the outside. Exaggerator down to the 16th pole. The gutty Nyquist is coming at him in second, and then Stradivari, followed by Cherry Wine. But Exaggerator has turned the tables. He has won the Preakness Stakes.
Welcome to the Paddock Pass with Brian Mariano on 104.5 The Team.
Welcome, everybody, to this weekend's edition of the Paddock Pass. I, of course, am your host, Brian Mariano. First of all, we're going to go over what you just heard, the Preakness result. There's a lot of factors that involved the outcome of that race. We're going to go over a few of them. We're going to be joined a little bit by TVG handicapper Matt Carothers is going to join us on the Paddock Pass this week. We're going to go over what he thought about the Preakness, what we're looking forward to in the Belmont, and we're going to play a new game. It's called Power Rankings, and we're going to see who he might feel are the winners of the Travers already at this point in May. Again, of course, the Paddock Pass. Thank you for listening. Of course, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at 1045 Mariano. We'll talk anything to do with horse racing, guys. Anything you want to talk about, any news you feel like you need to know, hit me up on there. I'll make sure to get back to you at all. So let's get back to this Preakness that we saw this past weekend. And this had a lot of different factors. Exaggerator ends up turning the tables on Nyquist, wins the race by 3.5 lengths at 5-2. Cherry Wine, who I wasn't high on at all to win the race. I actually called it out on Levac and Wolf last week. The horse was not going to win the race, but ran a huge second to pay $9.80 to place and $4.20 to show, making the exact a pretty respectable $88 for $2. If you had it, I'm happy for you. I unfortunately did not cash the ticket. I had it to where I had Exaggerator and Nyquist 1 and 2, so that nose kind of cost me a little bit of money. Now, the factors I was talking about in the beginning of the show, I feel like the off-track was a huge deal for this race. Now, the off-track really helped Exaggerator when we had Todd Schrupp on before the Kentucky Derby. We asked him as well if there was an off-track, how much it really would help Exaggerator. And his quick turn of foot really is helped with the muddy track because this horse seems to not sit too far back, and he sat a perfect trip. I'll give Kent DeSormo all the credit in the world for that ride. He sat back away from all the kickback, let Nyquist and all the speed go way ahead of him, and he sat inside and saved all the ground. So by far, nothing to take away from Exaggerator in this race. He by far ran the better race, and of course won by the 3.5 length margin. I'm going to take a little bit of a shot at Mario Gutierrez because I know he caught a flyer with Nyquist out. He asked him to run early in the race, but it really is a question mark that he either had two choices to make, and he didn't make either of them. When they passed the line the first time, this horse either needs to go past these horses and take the lead on his own, or he needs to wrangle the horse back to run second. Of course, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, but when you catch a flyer like that with a horse, you have to make that decision. You can't sit there and run 22 and 46 with horses on the inside and outside of you. That's why I always say when horses are on the front end, it's great if they're running quick fractions if you're a closer like Exaggerator is. But if the horse is by himself running 22 and 46, it's completely different than if he's sitting there with a horse on his inside and at this point with one on his outside as well, really pushing the horse to go faster. So Exaggerator really just preyed on this really fast pace. And I thought Nyquist really ran a gutsy race to run third, kind of losing it down the stretch. But I really have to question Mario's tactics here because I really don't know if he made the right decision by kind of sitting back with these two horses. I either thought he should go and say, I'm the speed of the race, come and catch me, or wrangled back, and he didn't do either of them at all. This, of course, the Paddock Pass. Of course, we're going to have Matt Carothers on in about 5 minutes. He's going to answer big questions for us. Unfortunately, we are not going to see a rematch in the Belmont, which I'm going to be lucky enough to attend down there. The first time I'm going without seeing a Triple Crown on the line. But this is going to be one of the better cards that we'll see in New York the entire year. We got 5 Grade 1 races. Race 3 on the card is going to start a stakes all the way to, I believe they're going to have 12 or 13 races. So we'll see how that goes. One of the big reasons I love this card is because they load up a bunch of very good races on top of each other. And it sets up for big betting opportunities. So I'm going to ask Matt what he thinks about it and where he feels the early projection is going to be. So obviously, most of you listening, we live in the 518 area code, and we all go to Saratoga in the summer. I'm going to ask him now, as of late May, who he feels the winner of the Travers Stakes is going to be. We'll see what he says, of course. Stay tuned to that. As we move towards where Belmont's going to be in 2 weeks, obviously Nyquist will not be there. He had a high white blood cell count, obviously having a fever after the race. So he's still at Pimlico, is not going to ship to Belmont. I'm really interested to see what Doug O'Neill wants to do with this horse. I don't think he'll come back east, so I'd be shocked if Matt tells me that Nyquist will be any sort of a winner of the Travers. I feel like he'll stay on the West Coast and run at Santa Anita, different places like that, to get set up, because that's where the Breeders' Cup's going to be later this year, is at Santa Anita. So interested to see what he'll do. The big news this morning is that Creator is going to be in the Belmont Stakes. So this is becoming a deeper and deeper field as the days progress. So I think Creator could be a player, especially if you play exotics, exacted triple supers, stuff like that. The deep closer doesn't really run well, and I don't see a lot of speed as we look at the contenders right now, 2 weeks out from the Belmont. But it'll be interesting to see how the field takes shape and where they draw. And, of course, we'll ask Matt about that as well. Moving on, of course, the Paddock Pass. Thank you for joining me this week. Beholder ran 5 furlongs in 59-2 under a breezing work earlier this week, and my goodness, is that impressive. This horse, after not running in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year against American Pharoah, came back and won in early March, now is coming back and going to run on June 4th in the Vanity Mile. This is going to be the steps that this horse will take. I believe that Mandela wants to have this horse running in the Breeders' Cup Classic this year, and I really hope that she comes back to the form that she was last year. It was great to talk about in September and October to how good this matchup could have been with American Pharoah, and this is shaping up to be a huge Breeders' Cup Classic this year with California Chrome, Beholder. We're going to have Nyquist, Exaggerator. There's going to be a ton of great horses running in this race, and I can't wait to get there and see all these horses running in the same race later this year. We have a huge announcement to make now. A lot of you remember Cornelio Velasquez. He's won 5 riding titles in NYRA and has a bunch of wins throughout his career, making over $164 million in purses. He's going to relocate to South Florida. He's going to run full-time at Gulfstream Park. And when asked about it, he said the year-round racing taking place at Gulfstream Park, he feels like he wants to be closer to his family and he wants to ride full-time there. So who can really blame him for that? A fantastic rider going to stay in South Florida, and we'll see if this can be a new change and reinvigorating him a little bit, because he's had some good rides in the past, but you haven't really seen him on top of a lot of the jockey standings the last couple years. Maybe this will reinvigorate him a little bit, being closer to his family, and he's definitely going to be a jockey you're going to want to play down in South Florida at Gulfstream Park. 104.5 The Team, 104.5theteam.com. The Paddock Pass joined from Los Angeles by TVG handicapper Matt Carothers. Matt, how we doing, man?
I'm doing well, Brian. It's cloudy at the beach, overcast, marine layer, a little bit chilly, but I've come to expect that this time of year in Southern California. But doing well. Got a couple of days off, so happy to talk to you.
Perfect. Thanks for taking the time, of course. Obviously, we look back this past weekend in the Preakness. There was a lot of factors in that race. Obviously, the early speed from Nyquist, the wet track helping Exaggerator. Yep. What do you feel was the main factor in the outcome?
Wow. I think the decision that Mario Gutierrez made, early on in the race, and I guess now we've heard that it was, via instruction, that he was told to be very aggressive with Nyquist. Obviously, he sent him hard out of the gate. He's a horse with tremendous, innate gate speed, and you want to utilize that when you have when that's the strength of your horse. But I thought there was a situation going into the first turn where he could have laid off Uncle Lino, and he decided to keep going with them. Easier said than done. Again, I think Paul Redham, the owner, said they instructed Mario to go to the lead, so maybe he was just listening to what he was told to do. And you have a horse that's wound up early because you were aggressive with him out of the gate, and he wants to go. Sometimes it's difficult to control him and harness that energy. But I thought he maybe had a split moment where he could have taken back of Uncle Lino. And once he didn't, and once he really committed to engage, and then you saw those opening fractions, the 22 and change, you knew it was going to be difficult for Nyquist. And then, Kent DeSarmo has been he's a Hall of Fame rider because he's a great money rider. He's won a lot of big races. He's won 3 derbies. He's now won he wins another Preakness here. And it was a flawless ride from DeSarmo. He moved when he needed to. He saved ground as long as he possibly could. He swung out between the 3/8 pole and the quarter pole, and I thought he did a great job of sort of impeding and bothering Velasquez, who was aboard Stradivari. And then he took dead aim on Nyquist and even bothered him a little bit. It was completely legal. He went down on Gutierrez and Nyquist a little bit, forcing Nyquist to change paths. It was a brilliant ride from DeSarmo. Maybe you can question the ride from Gutierrez a little bit. And over an off racetrack, Exaggerator, a better racehorse, and there wasn't much between those two horses going in to begin with.
No, I agree. I was one of the guys that kind of questioned Mario's ride a little bit, but, my feeling was when he hit the finish line the first time, he had to make that choice either to wrangle back or keep going, and it seemed like he just didn't make the right choice there.
Yeah, but, I agree with you, but, trainer and owner is telling, or saying after the race that that's what they wanted him to do, and he was so aggressive out of the gate that maybe it was difficult for him. I mean, it's easier said than done, but from my perspective, too, there was an instance where he could have, it's all about split-second decisions, and I think maybe he made an incorrect one. He had the ability to sit off Uncle Lino, but he decided not to and just take it to everybody else and be right alongside Uncle Lino. And I think, would he have won the race if he didn't do that? Maybe not. I mean, Exaggerator still might have just been the best horse in the Preakness.
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to see a rematch in the Belmont because Nyquist had a high white blood cell count, so he's going to stay at Pimlico and then probably ship back west. But as the field starts to become together, Creator said this morning that he will run. Which of the possible upsets could you see taking down Exaggerator in the Belmont?
Well, first of all, I think all these horses are dangerous. I don't think this is the greatest 3-year-old group. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Nyquist and what he's accomplished, and I think he's a really good racehorse who's his number one asset is his tenacity and his fight. And I think he put that on display in defeat in the Preakness. I really kind of marveled the way he kind of came back after it looked like Exaggerator might open up on him. He got nailed for second by Cherry Wine, but, the Preakness, any figure you look at, the race wasn't very fast. Even the buyer, I think, came back a 101, which is not really strong. I think, anybody in the race could pull the upset. We've obviously had massive upsets in the Belmont over the last, couple of decades in particular. But, it's a big misnomer that you want these plotting types at 1.5 miles because they want more ground. I completely disagree with that. Generally speaking, the paces are very slow in the Belmont, and you lose a lot of the front runners from the Derby and the Preakness, and those horses can't win the Belmont. So I look for horses that can be tactical. I think the Pletcher horses are the horses that can beat Exaggerator. I think Destin, who needed the Derby, he hadn't raced in 7 weeks. It was 7 weeks between his win in the Tampa Bay Derby and the Kentucky Derby, and I thought he ran a very good 6. He's a horse that's tactical, that ran well in the Derby, who skipped the Preakness, makes him dangerous. And then Stradivari. I mean, he's going the right direction. This horse is lightly raced. I thought he ran a really good 4th in the Preakness. He can have a wide trip, as I mentioned earlier. DeSarmo I thought bothered Velasquez a little bit aboard Stradivari. Right at about the quarter pole, right inside the quarter pole. So, and he's tactical, and he's a horse that against this group, you look at the horses that are going this race, Creator, really slow. Cherry Wine, really slow. Lonnie, can't break. Sudden breaking news. Plotter, Brody's Cause, slow. I mean, it's like slow horse after slow horse after slow horse. DeSarmo's going to be much closer early on in Exaggerator, and most really good horses have some versatility. I think Exaggerator does. But I would look for Stradivari and Destin as the two horses that have ability, talent, go in the right direction. In the case of Destin, freshened up, they get the jump on Exaggerator and have a very good opportunities, I think, to either one of them to win the race.
So we move from Belmont now back west. Beholder put in a fantastic work this week in 59-2. Now, I'm going to look way ahead with you here, Matt. Barring any injury.
All right, crystal ball.
Here it is. Can you see her as a main contender as she was before she got hurt last year in the Breeders' Cup Classic this year?
Yeah, why not? I mean, she's silly talented. I mean, she really is. And as great as she has been, I think because of, Zenyatta from a few years back and American Pharoah last year, and the obsession, for good reason, that we had with California Chrome in 2014. I'm not saying she hasn't gotten respect or has been forgotten about, but I don't think she's gotten the respect that she deserves. Mm-hmm. She won the juvenile fillies as a 2-year-old. I mean, she has been great for a long time. Her performance in the TVG Pacific Classic is really one of the, I'm old and I've been going to the racetrack my entire life. And that was one of the great visual performances, figure standpoint, visual standpoint, that I've ever seen in a race. The move that she made into those fractions and to sustain it the way that she did and to finish the way that she did at 10 furlongs against males, that was sublime. So, yes, she can. Her only, I don't know if it's a fault, drawback has been she's been a little fragile. She's had some injury issues. She's gotten sick at the wrong time on a couple of occasions. The Breeders' Cup Distaff comes to mind from a couple of years ago where she got sick, 7-10 days out from the race, and we were looking forward to that being one of the great Distaff races ever, and it seemed like she missed the race, and horses like Close Hatches weren't the same, and then Untapple ended up beating not a very good field that year. But yeah, she's obviously in great hands, one of the great trainers of all time in Mandela. Even though we have some pretty good horses out there right now, and California Chrome comes to mind, she's clearly a major player, and at least when she comes back to the races, in a little more than a week, I think a week from tomorrow.
Yep.
I don't know what kind of a test she'll have, but Stellar Win's a pretty good racehorse. I mean, it'll be her first start of the year. She was second in the Distaff last year for John Sadler, but at least it won't be, as Dick Vitale likes to say, Cupcake City for her. At least she's going to face somebody with some quality, even though, on paper she's much better than Stellar Win. Yeah, she's definitely, if she can stay sound and healthy, she's definitely a factor in terms of the Classic looking way ahead.
All right, Matt. Now, I'm a big fan of, pick fours, pick sixes, being able to spread your money out throughout a card. And I remember watching you at Santa Anita last year hit a pick six on just your main horses that you liked on a very small nominal ticket. Now, with my listeners, what is the secret to keeping the ticket nice and small and being able to hit big prices like that?
Well, thanks for noticing that day. They're few and far between. First of all, when you're feeling good as a player and you're hot, and the races are playing out the way that you draw them up, and maybe you're winning a photo, or you're getting a nice trip. That's where I think you increase your wagers. First of all, if you're a $10 win player, start betting 20 to 30 to win. And the exact opposite, when you're chilly, you can't get a break. The way you think a horse is going to clear on the lead, and the horse is sixth early on, and you're just not seeing the ball well. You're losing photos. That's when you're a $10 player. Either stop for a bit or literally become a $2 and $5 player. So don't chase when you're cold. Mm-hmm. The key in the pick fours and the pick sixes, I think the success. First of all, you have to have a lot of confidence. I think it means a lot. I mean, if you go into these wagers, you're really thinking, I know I'm not going to win, blah blah blah. Well, it's weird, but there's a good chance you're not. I think the psychology of the game is very important. That's why most of the elite players that I know, or the professional players that I know, they're pretty even-keeled. They don't get too high. They don't get too low, because it's easy to fall into the doldrums and really beat yourself up. You can't do that. I try to do that for about 5 or 10 minutes after a race and then try to forget about it as best I can. But if you can have an opinion, don't force the opinion. But
okay.
The pick fours that I like the best, or the pick fives, or even the pick sixes, is when I love a horse that doesn't have to be a giant price, but preferably not a favorite. A horse that's at least going to be a $10 horse, a $10 to $30 horse in the sequence in a very hard race that I love. Those are the pick fours that I get excited about. It's a 12-horse field. It's a grass race. The favorite's going to be 3-1. I know that 98% of the players out there playing the pick four, they're going to go deep in this race. They're going to some big players are going to all it. People are going to go 6, 7, 8 deep. If I can be right with the horse that I like in a race like that at 5-1, 8-1, 10-1, that's huge. Hopefully you have a decent win bet on the horse too. Don't forget to play these horses to win, folks. Mm-hmm. Don't spend $80 on a pick four level horse, have that horse win, and then get knocked out in the third leg. I mean, there's nothing more depressing than that. So at least have that fallback, that $20 win play on that horse that you like. But if you can be right, the way I look at it is if I can be right with a single in a really hard race, I should hit the pick 4.
Yeah.
People that complain about, I'm always 3 out of 4, I'm always 4 out of 5, and I play the pick 6, I'm always 5 out of 6. I want to know which race you missed. If the race you missed, it was your single, I don't think you have an excuse unless you lose by an inch or you lose because of a terrible ride. Mm-hmm. I don't get mad when my singles lose unless it's that way. I was just wrong. I love the horse. He didn't win. That's the way it works. I get mad when, it's a field of 8. I have no feel for the race. I use 4 of the 8 or something, and the horse that's within the 5th horse on the ticket wins. Those are the races that I get when I don't go quite deep enough. But you handicap a sequence, and don't force yourself to love a horse in a hard race. But if you really like a horse in a very difficult race, that's where you can get excited because if you're right, you're probably going to get paid. If there's difficult races around that race, you go deep in those races, and for 50 cents. If you have a single and a pick 4, you can go deep in the other legs, right, Brian? I mean, you go 5 by 4 by 4. That's pretty deep. That's a $40 ticket for 50 cents. So you can spread out. Also, if you have that single, and if you can be right, that's where you can make some money.
Matt Carothers, horse racing analyst and handicapper for TVG. You can follow him on Twitter at MattCTVG. All right, Matt, I'm starting with a new segment on the show. I call it power rankings. No need to be nervous here.
I'm the guinea pig here.
Yes, you're the one starting this off. Since we're so close to Saratoga, all my listeners, give me your top 3 horses that have a chance to win the Travers at Saratoga this summer.
Wow. Okay, how about this one? I know we all live we don't really think ahead, we don't look in the past, so we live in the present. How about Gift Box yesterday?
Okay.
Right? I mean, this horse for Chad Brown, he came back. That was a very good allowance field at Belmont on Thursday. It was his first start of the year. He wasn't even favored in the race because Gettysburg ran a very good fifth, setting those ridiculous fractions in the Arkansas Derby, was favored. He made a big move into a slow pace and finished like a good thing. The buyer, I think, has come back 98. So how about Gift Box as a horse? And I think new shooters like a Gift Box with this 3-year-old crop, to me, not being that great, are very dangerous later in the year. So how about Gift Box?
Okay.
Who else would I have on the list? Gunrunner. I mean, I don't know what I thought his Derby performance was really good. They seem to be backing off him a little bit, the Asmussen camp. But this is a horse that has great pedigree. His Derby effort was really good. It seems like they're going to freshen him up and try to recharge the battery for the second half of the year. So maybe Gunrunner.
Okay.
And how about the horse that I'll probably end up betting in the Belmont, and a horse that I think is going to keep improving, and I think the late start that he's had will help him once you get to the Midsummer Derby, Stradivari.
Okay, yeah,
so
absolutely.
Stradivari is a horse that has a very high ceiling, in my opinion. Gift Box, I love what I saw yesterday in his first start, and what was it? His first start since the Remsen, I think. His first start since he was third to Mohamed. And then Gunrunner. I don't know. I think Nyquist is a really good racehorse, and he's proven me wrong. I mean, I bet against him in the Juvenile. I bet against him in the Derby. I thought he had distance limitations. I thought he was a little on the overrated side. And after his Derby win, I was like, wow, I was just wrong. I was wrong about this horse. And then even defeating the Preakness, I thought he ran his heart out. I still don't think he's a great racehorse, and I don't think Exaggerator is a great racehorse. I think they're very good racehorses. So we'll see. I think some other horses have had the potential and room for improvement that maybe we'll be hearing from more at the end of the year than those 2 horses, Nyquist and Exaggerator, the horses who have been under the spotlight as 2-year-olds in the first half of their 3-year-old campaigns.
Matt Carothers of TVG, of course, you can follow him on Twitter.
A long-winded answer, I know. I'm a talkaholic.
It's all right, buddy. It's all right.
For the length of these responses.
It's all right. Again, you can follow him at MattCTVG on Twitter. Matt Carothers of TVG. Thanks for giving us the time, man. I appreciate it on your day off.
Right. I enjoyed it. Anytime. Just invite me to come on, and I'm there.
Sounds good. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.